Welcome back to Cryptid Mysterious. Tonight's story comes from Henry Mays, a former resident of Westchester, New York. Here's his encounter. It was June 1962 when I went to the Glen, as it was known then, to watch the Glen Classic Sports Car Road Races. This was a Sports Car Club of America main event, and I made it my business to be there as often as I could. At that time, I was the owner of a Jaguar drop-head coupe that wasn't involved in the race. I was strictly an enthusiast and a spectator of the events that weekend. At the time, this was a fairly new 2.3-mile closed-circuit road course, and if you liked sports cars, crowds, and fun, this was the place to be. In spite of my fancy for sports cars, Watkins Glen had a lot of interesting things to do and was a great place to spend a week or two on vacation, which I typically did. Just to give you an idea about what I'm talking about, they actually had an organized archery area with targets to shoot and a private tract of land that was stocked with small game for archers to hunt on. They had just built the new Watkins Glen golf course, which was 9 holes of great golf just north of Lake Seneca. They also had this grand old wooden lake boat that would pick up passengers on the hour to take them on a tour of Seneca Lake. It was really quite extraordinary. Then there was the Glen itself, which was located right in the middle of the village. This is a series of streams and falls which meander through a mile-long gorge that has in many areas been set up with walkways and even night spotting for your enjoyment. Then there's the place where my sighting happened. There's a spot just below a small waterfall in a place called Catherine Creek, where I used to cast a fly whenever I was there. This little waterfall appeared like it was emerging from a stack of slate slabs and dropping into a beautiful little pool with the creek traveling away from it. Now, usually there would be a line of men fishing along the creek, but on the day I was there, it was drizzling slightly, and there was nobody around but me. And I had been casting a fly, working the pool, when I decided to go downstream a little bit in pursuit of some better fishing. It was then, when I was standing on one side of the creek, that I swore I saw something moving around in the bushes on the other side. But it moved so quickly that I wasn't sure what I had seen. Just a few moments later, the upper half of an enormous black fur-covered body was standing diagonally to me on the other side of the creek, looking at me. I couldn't believe my eyes. Yet, there it was. If I didn't know any better, I would have told you it was a giant gorilla, though the reality was that it didn't really look like a gorilla. It was much too tall and stood very erect. It just stood there, kind of swaying back and forth, looking at me, and it was in no way trying to hide from my view. I remember that it kept playing with the leaves on a branch next to it as it was swaying. It appeared, as we used to say many years ago, that it had ants in its pants. In other words, it looked very nervous. I would also add something that I hadn't really thought much about until many years later, which is that creature, which I now know as a Bigfoot, had breasts. So I believe that what I was seeing at the time was in fact a female. The other thing was this. I've heard of the others describing a weightlifter type of physique, but what I saw was nothing of the sort. At the waist of this Bigfoot was maybe 3 feet wide and maintained that width throughout the entire chest. Of course, the shoulders were wider, which they would be, and although it didn't appear fat, it didn't particularly look virile either. Kind of like when you see a bear walking. Now, please don't get me wrong, this thing was maybe 8 feet tall and had to have weighed 1,000 pounds. I'm certain that such a beast has incredible strength and abilities. I'm just saying that it didn't appear to be a superhero, if that makes any sense. I was face to face with it for almost 5 minutes, when it simply turned and walked away. The face also was the giveaway that it wasn't a gorilla, because yes, it was big and hairy, but that's it. If anything, the face looked more human than it did ape.